Right. So is the PPT visible to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Okay, so what was the last topic we discussed yesterday? We were discussing about something confusing, right? What was that? Confusion matrix. Hmm? Confusion matrix. Did anybody go through what the confusion matrix is and what are the various components associated with confusion matrix? Nobody. Ubertech is around the corner. Where do you have time to go through data mining? Is it? Hmm? Out of curiosity, did anybody look into what exactly are the components of the confusion matrix? Hmm? Nobody. Okay. So you can see here in the slide the four components. Hmm? So can somebody tell me what each stands for? What do you mean by a true positive? What do you mean by a true negative? What do you mean by a false positive? And what do you mean by a false negative? Hmm? The example is being given there. So from the example, with respect to the example, can you tell me what exactly is this true positive all about? We discussed a case study for this yesterday, right? A COVID-19 case study was discussed to understand this. Okay, so with respect to that, what is this true positive? Hmm? Actually, when you predict an observation as belonging to a particular class and it's actually belonging to that class, we term it as true positive. Hmm? So that is, you're correctly predicting the COVID positive passenger as a positive case. That's when we call it as a true positive. Okay. Then what about a true negative? Hmm? What is a true negative? Sriram, what is true negative? The example is being given there. Correctly predicted COVID negative passenger as negative. Okay. So means what? Hmm. True negative means what?
Um, Incorrectly predicted COVID negative passenger as positive.
In the sense, correctly predicting the COVID negative passenger as negative. So TP and TN both are correct. Okay, so when you predict an observation that does not belong to a class and it actually does not belong to that class, it's a correct prediction. Both TP and TN are correct predictions. Okay, TP is for positive case and TN is for negative case. Okay, then we have incorrect predictions. Incorrect predictions we have false positive and false negative. Okay, so what is false positive all about? False positive means incorrectly predicting COVID negative passenger as positive. That is false positive. Okay, so when you predict that a particular observation belongs to a class and it's actually not belonging to the class, FP and FN are incorrect, TP and TN are correct. Okay, so that's what is false positive. Then what about false negative? Hmm? So incorrectly predicted COVID positive passenger as a negative. Okay, so false negative. When you predict an observation does not belong to a class, but then it actually does belong to that particular class. Okay, so what is this confusion matrix telling you? Hmm? What is it confusion matrix telling you? What does it actually tell you? So when you're performing a classification or a prediction, these are the four outcomes which can occur. Hmm? Right? So these are the things which will help us to have an understanding of what exactly is the accuracy of our classifier. Okay, so when we speak about accuracy, we concentrate on this true positive and true negative cases. Okay, so that is, these are the two correct predictions, correctly predicted. Okay, so accuracy is basically number of correct predictions divided by the total number of predictions. Okay, so I hope you remember the formula. TP by TN divided by TP plus, this is TN, okay, plus FP by FN. Okay, so some textbooks you might see it as TP plus TN divided by uh, positive plus negative. Positive is TP plus TN and negative is FP plus FN. Okay, both are the same. Okay, so we saw the various cases or scenarios with respect to what happens when you try to increase the accuracy. Okay, when you classify every passenger as a COVID negative, the 10 extra people who come. Okay, no, not extra people. Out of the 50,000 passengers, we took a sample of 10 and identified 4 situations. Okay, then how the confusion matrix looks like. Okay, so then we found that accuracy was not enough, so we went for what is called the recall, true positive rate, TPR, true positive rate or recall. Okay, so where you're trying to identify correctly identifying as positives out of all the positives, TP by TP plus FN. Okay, so recall. Okay, then again we saw a situation where recall was not enough. Okay, so wherein we went for what is called the next uh, uh, metric called precision. Okay, which will give you the fraction of correctly identified as positive out of all the predicted as positives. Okay, so then again we saw some strategies. Okay, so I mean, independently many of these metrics do have its disadvantages. Okay, so do have its disadvantages, due to which we went for a, it's always a precision recall trade off. Okay, so wherein that's the reason why we went for a combined measure. Okay, so what was the name of that combined measure, which will combine both recall and precision? Hmm? Achinta, what was the name of that combined measure? Do you remember?
Ma'am, no, ma'am.
F1 score. Hmm? Okay, so that was F1 score, precision, combined, a metric that will combine both recall and precision to compute the performance. We had what is called F1 score. Okay, F1 score, which takes into consideration harmonic mean, 2 into precision into recall divided by precision plus recall. Okay, so if you're trying to seek a balance between precision and recall, you can go for what is called your F1 score. Okay, then we also looked into what is called the receiver operator characteristic curve called ROC curve. Okay, so that's another common tool for evaluating the performance of classifiers. Okay, so I mean, we saw the graph, hmm, showing the performance of the classification model at various classification threshold. Okay, so false positive rate versus true positive rate. Okay, so true positive rate is nothing but your recall, recall. Okay, so that is fraction of positive instances that are correctly labeled as positive. Okay, the other one is false positive rate. Okay, then yeah, how to compute the points which come under this ROC curve. For that, we had this kind of concept of AUC. There is actually an algorithm associated with it. I mean, I'm not, there is no need to discuss that as a part of a syllabus. Okay, so all you need to understand is, okay, so I mean, uh, like how, I mean, considering the area under the ROC curve, okay, for which the value ranges from 0 to 1, you can keep this in mind. Whose, I mean, a model whose prediction is 100% wrong, it has got an AUC value of 0, and the other case it has got an AUC value of 1. Okay, so there are many ways of interpreting this area under the curve. Okay, so generally it is being taken as a probability, that the model ranks a random positive example more higher than a random negative example. Okay, so the concept of logistic regression prediction can be taken, it can be arranged linear, I mean, as a lean, I mean, it can be ordered in the ascending order, and some computations are involved. Okay, so I'm not put that in the PPT, not I'm nor I'm going to discuss that in detail. As of now, we just keep in mind that AUC ranges from 0 to 1 and how the predictions, the summary of it. Okay, so that's what we discussed in uh, yesterday's class. Okay, so this is a generalization of ROC, where the concept is coming from and whatever, that you can just read through it. I have already explained the concept of ROC and AOC. Okay, so I hope now things are clear regarding what is the confusion matrix and other things. Just a second. Fine. Okay, so confusion matrix, by now you know it is a summary of the prediction results on the classification problem. Okay, so the number of correct and the incorrect predictions. Okay, so they are basically being aggregated or summarized with their count value. And they are, it's being broken down by each class. Okay, so that's the concept of your confusion matrix and other things. Okay, so then yesterday we had discussed about something called sensitivity. Sensitivity or recall, or it is called true TPR, true positive rate. Okay, sensitivity. What was the formula for sensitivity? What was the formula for sensitivity? Nobody remembers. What is sensitivity all about? Hmm? Sensitivity was, it's TPR, true positive rate. So it is TP divided by TP plus FN. Okay, so some textbooks you will see it as TP by P. P is nothing but TP plus FN. Okay, so yeah, that was sensitivity, the true positive rate. Okay, so similarly we have uh, another related concept called specificity. Okay, specificity. Okay, so this is actually the true negative rate, TNR. Okay, true negative rate. The proportion of actual negative cases which are correctly identified, or you can even call it as how the definition goes here, the proportion of actual negative cases which got predicted as negative, that is true negative. Okay, TN divided by TN plus FP. Okay, so it can also be put as, okay, fine. So this is another related concept. Okay, specificity along with your sensitivity. Okay, so now coming to the next metric. Okay, so we have what is called the error rate or the misclassification rate. Error rate or what is called the misclassification rate. Okay, so you can see here, that's nothing but 1 minus accuracy. Okay, so accuracy, you all know the formula, what is accuracy. Okay, so TP plus TN divided by all the parameters. Okay, so here accuracy of N is nothing but the accuracy of the classifier M. Okay, so error rate. Okay, so error rate can be computed as using this formula. Okay, so this is the misclassification rate, 1 minus accuracy. So the error rate is nothing but Fp plus Fn divided by all the parameters. Okay, so if we were to use the training set instead of the test set, okay, so to estimate the error rate of a model, so that particular point of time, it will be called as the resubstitution error. Okay, in case you're going using the training data instead of the test data, then we will call it as a the particular quantity will be, error rate would be known as the resubstitution error. Okay, so that's regarding the error rate, accuracy, precision, recall. Okay, and specificity and sensitivity. Okay, why is it my PPT moving? Okay, right. Okay, so now moving on to how to evaluate, two, three different techniques for evaluating the classifier's accuracy. So far we were looking into the various metrics. Okay, so how to evaluate the classifier's accuracy. For that we have what is called the bootstrapping. Bootstrap. I think somebody has unmuted your microphone. Please mute it. It's creating some disturbance here in the line. Okay, so please mute your microphone. Okay, so evaluating the classifier's accuracy by using what is called bootstrapping. Okay, so bootstrapping, what it means is, actually this bootstrapping is suitable for small data set. Okay, so this particular technique, what happens is, it will sample the given training tuples uniformly with replacement. Tuples in the sense your records, the rows, records with replacement. Okay, so that is each time a particular tuple is being selected, that is a row is being selected, it is equally likely to be selected again and re-added to the training set. Okay, so for instance, just imagine a machine is randomly selecting the tuples for the training set. Okay, so in sampling with replacement, the machine is allowed to select the same tuple or same value more than once. Okay, so in the sense, in this particular scenario, in this bootstrapping, the sample will always have duplicate observations. Sample will always have duplicate observation. Sampling with replacement, that's why. Okay, so for example, if your population is 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, you have this sample. Okay, and we are trying to draw a random sample, okay, of size 4. Sample of size 4, with replacement, that is bootstrap. I want to generate a subset bootstrap. Okay, so with the sample of size 4 with replacement. Okay, so then I can have one sample. Sample 1 can be 2, 3, 3, 6. See, it's getting repeated, duplicates are there. Okay, then I can have another sample. Let's say sample 2 can be 4, 4, 6, and 2. Okay, so this is okay. So I mean, yeah, that's how you go ahead with the bootstrapping technique. Okay, sampling with replacement. Okay, so the machine is allowed to select the same tuple more than once. So I gave you this example. You can have duplicate observations when you have a population 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can draw sample. I mean, for example, when you want to draw a sample size of 4 with replacement, you can, the first sample can be 2, 3, 3, 6, and the second one can be 4, 4, 6, 2. What I want to stress is it duplicates are allowed here. Okay, so actually there are many bootstrapping techniques. Okay, so there are many bootstrapping technique. So one of the most common bootstrapping technique is what is called the 632.632 bootstrap. You can see here. This is one of the most popular bootstrapping technique. Okay, so suppose, let's say you are given a data set with d tuples. You are given a data set with d tuples. Okay, so the data set is being sampled d times with replacement. Okay, so that will result in a bootstrap sample, or you can say a training data set with d samples. Okay, so there could be some data tuples that did not make it to the training set because it is with replacement. So the same thing would have got selected again and again, and some would have missed the chance of getting selected. So there could be data tuples that did not make it to the training set. Okay, and those things will end up becoming the test set. Okay, so let's say we had to do this several number of times. Okay, when we had to do this several number of times. Okay, so it so happens that you can see a quantity measured mentioned out here. An average of 63.2% of the original tuples will end up in the bootstrap sample, and the remaining 36.8% will form the test set. Okay, so that's why we have this name called 0.632 bootstrap. Okay, so because 63.2% of the original sample is becoming the bootstrap sample, remaining what balance, that is 36.8, is becoming as a test set. Okay, so that's why we have the name 0.632 bootstrap. Okay, so now you might ask me the question, why the 63? How does the, where does this 63.2% come from? Okay, so what we assume is, okay, so each tuple, it has got a probability or a chance of 1 by d of getting selected, of being selected. Okay, so the chances of not getting selected is 1 minus 1 by d. Okay, so we have to select d times, it has to be selected d times. Okay, so the probability that it will not be chosen, that it will not be chosen during the entire uh, life cycle, you can say, or during that entire time. Okay, so that will be equal to 1 minus 1 by d to the power d. Okay, so that's being approximated. Okay, so in case the d is very large, okay, so then the probability will approach e to the power minus 1 and 0 point this particular value. Okay, so that's why we are saying 36.8% of tuples will not be selected for the training, and that will land up as a test set, and the remaining 63.2 will become your training set. Okay, so you repeat that sampling process or procedure nearly k times. Okay, repeat the sampling process k times, where in each iteration we use the current test set to obtain the accuracy estimate of the model. Okay, whatever is obtained from the current bootstrapping sample. Okay, so when you say the overall accuracy of that particular model M, that's being given by this particular equation. Don't get scared by seeing this. So I'm just telling you about one of the sampling techniques, one of the techniques for evaluating the classifier's accuracy, called bootstrapping. Bootstrapping is nothing but sampling with replacement, and one of the bootstrapping techniques is what is called 0.632. So to tell you why this name 0.632, I gave this big explanation. Okay, 63.2% becomes the original, and the remaining is the test sample. So that's why the name 0.632 bootstrapping. Okay, so it's also called 0.632 rule. Okay, so that's how you derive the accuracy of it. Okay, so I just wanted to tell you why that 0.632 comes into picture there. Okay, so all these are to solve the bias problem. Okay, so the two people, I think I don't remember their names, they proposed this 0.632 estimator. Okay, and this is a formula for it. Okay, so I hope it's clear. Evaluating the classifier accuracy by bootstrapping. Bootstrapping is all about sampling with replacement. Gave you an example. Several bootstrapping methods are there. The most common is what is called your 0.632 bootstrap, and what it is all about. Okay, chances of tuple getting selected is 1 by d. 1 minus d is a sample of not getting selected. Okay, so yeah, when it has to be repeated d times. Okay, so the probability of not getting selected during the entire period is what is being mentioned here, 1 minus 1 by d to the power d. Okay, so which approximates to 0.368 and other things. Okay, so finally how to compute the overall accuracy of the model. Okay, so this concept, this bootstrapping, actually works better or well for only small data sets. Okay, so next, coming to estimating the confidence intervals. Okay, so this is actually we are discussing model selection. You can see confidence and statistical significance test coming up. So it's all about model selection using statistical tests of significance. So that's what it's all about. You have the statistical significance confidence limits coming up here. Okay, so let's say you can just go through whatever is being mentioned here. Okay, suppose we have generated two classification models. Let's say M1 and M2 from our data. Okay, and let's say we have performed tenfold cross validation. Do you remember what is the cross validation and what is this tenfold cross validation all about? When you say k is equal to 10, 10 folds are involved. What you basically do is you split the entire data set into 10 groups. Okay, so that data, one particular, in each iteration, so one particular group will act as a test, and the others would be the training data. So then, in short, after each iteration, so each of these in each split, you can say in each split, one would a different group will be acting as a test data. So all the 10 groups will get a chance to act as the test and the training data. So that's why people prefer going for cross validation when compared to your holdout technique. Okay, so let's say we have performed here, uh, I just mentioned we have generated two classifiers, M1 and M2. We want to see which one is better from our data. Okay, and we have performed a tenfold cross validation to obtain a error rate for each. This line shows it's a mean error rate, mean error rate M1 and M2. Okay, so how to determine which one is better? Okay, so how to determine which one is better? Okay, so I mean uh, by rule of thumb or with our intuition, we will always select the particular model which is having the lowest error rate. Okay, so that's what our objective will always be. Okay, we will always try to select the model with the lowest error rate. Okay, so but then that I mean, you're computing this mean error rate also. You can see here, use the cross validation, a tenfold cross validation, you're obtaining the mean error rate. Okay, so this M1 and M2 mean error rate, okay, so that may appear to be different for, I mean, that difference may not be actually statistically significant. Okay, so to in order to determine if there is any real difference between this mean error rate among the two models M1 and M2, we will have to employ what is being mentioned out here, that is a test of statistical significance, and then try to obtain the confidence limits for our error estimates. Okay, so that is to check whether there is a difference between the two error rates. It's just about attributed to the chance, or I mean, whether it is being statistically significant. For that, we use this test of statistical significance, and you can also obtain the confidence limits for the error estimates. Okay, so you can see. So now the question is, what do we need to perform this statistical test? I mentioned we have to perform the statistical significance or statistical test. Okay, so what do we need to perform this statistical test? Okay, so for that we perform a tenfold cross validation. You assume that the samples follow what is called a T distribution with k minus 1 degrees of freedom. Okay, so for each model, you do a tenfold cross validation. That means tenfold means 10 times. Okay, so each time you use a different tenfold. That is different tenfold data partitioning, or that group. Okay, so each partitioning or each group is actually independently drawn. Okay, so after that we can average out the error rates which is obtained for each classifier M1 and M2 respectively, and then calculate the mean error rate for each model. Okay, so in general you can say it follows a T distribution with k minus 1 degrees of freedom, where k is equal to 10 in our example. Okay, so you can use the T test, the student's T test. Okay, so this will allow us to do the hypothesis testing, where the significance test used is your T test. Okay, or student's T test. Okay, so then we have this null hypothesis. Okay, M1 M2 are the same. Okay, so basically what our hypothesis is, the two models, that is M1 and M2, are the same. Or in other words, the difference in the mean error rate between the two is 0. Okay, so in case we reject this hypothesis in the sense null, if it is a null hypothesis. Okay, so then we can conclude that the difference between the two models is statistically significant. So in that case, we can select that particular model with the lowest error rate. Okay, so that's what this statistical testing, or estimating the statistical significance and confidence limit, is all about, as far as estimating the confidence intervals with respect to two classifiers M1 and M2 is concerned about. Okay, so okay, then of course we do have some formulas. Don't get scared by seeing these formulas. So you need to just know the procedure, what is being followed. Okay, so in data mining, okay, so we employ only a single test, single test set. Okay, so that is the same test set can be used for both M1 and M2. That's what is mentioned here. Only one test set is available, pairwise comparison. Okay, so we generally employ only a single test set. Okay, that same set is being used for both the classifiers M1 and M2. Okay, so in such cases, what we do is we do a pairwise comparison of the two models. Okay, so for which you have this tenfold cross validation. Okay, so for the ith round of the tenfold cross validation, the same cross partitioning is being used in order to obtain the errors M1 and M2. Okay, so yeah, So you can see here ERR M1. Okay, that is the error rate for the first model. ERR M2, that's for the second model. Okay, so the error rates for M1 and M2, it's being averaged. That's what is being shown here. The bar out here, it's being averaged. Okay, so to obtain the mean error rate. Okay, so the variance. Okay, so the variance. Okay, variance is not shown here. Okay, okay. So after computing this, you come. Yeah. This one. Hmm? You can see here the variance. This is the variance M1 minus M2, and the variance is denoted. T-test computes a T-statistic with K minus 1 degrees of freedom. Okay, so the variance of the difference between the two models. So that's denoted by this VAR, variance, M1 minus M2. Okay, so you have this T-test. T-test will compute the T-statistic with K minus 1 degrees of freedom. So in our case, we have taken K equal to 10. Okay, so yeah, in case this is in the case if we are using only one test, in case we are using two tests, then it is a non-paired t-test. So then this is the formula for it. Okay, so yeah, yeah, the you can see the variance here, variance of m1 by k1 plus variance of m2 by k2. So this is actually called this non-paired t-test, two sample t-test, two sample t-test. So this is a one sample t-test. One sample t-test. This is two sample t-test. Okay. So that's regarding estimating the confidence intervals. Again, it is stuck. Okay. Okay. So these are the that's regarding model selection using statistical test of significance. You need to know just the procedure. How do we go about it? What is the significance? What it mentions all about. Okay. So next is these are the issues affecting the model selection. One is the accuracy. Accuracy involved in predicting the class label. Second is the speed. Speed, robustness, the scalability, then interpretability. Okay, so the other measures are how good the rule is, goodness of a rule. Okay, so we had some metrics for evaluating the goodness of a rule. Do you remember what are those measures? How to evaluate the goodness of a rule? What were the metrics involved? In rule-based classification, we had discussed. Can you just refer back and tell me what were the two metrics involved? Hmm? Okay, so when I take attendance, you just go through. I'm not going to tell you what were the two metrics. Just like we have our support and confidence for checking out the interestingness of a pattern, we had some metrics to evaluate the goodness of a rule. Okay, then goodness of a rule, decision tree, size or compactness of classification rules. All these can be used. And these are the various issues affecting the model selection. Okay, so then coming to the last topic, what are all the various techniques used to improve the classification accuracy? Okay, so we have a very popular technique called ensembling technique. Okay, so which itself is being classified into three. I think it's bagging, boosting, and there's one more, ensemble. Yeah, bagging, boosting, and it's an ADA boost. Okay, so these are the three techniques involved. Okay, so how to improve the classification accuracy. So far we were looking into the model evaluation and selection. We discussed all the various metrics associated with it, including the statistical tests involved, and confidence limits and other things, various aspects associated with it. So next, it's all about what are the techniques involved to improve the classification accuracy. Okay, so before we start with it, let me take the attendance. So when I take the attendance, you please look into what are the various measures used to evaluate the goodness of a rule. Can you do that? Hmm? Yes or no? Still, I won't get an answer whether I ask yes, whether I ask no. Okay, so quickly answer your attendance. By then, you just look through it. Then we'll start with the next topic. Anirudh? Anirudh is absent today, or there is a big OD list. Why no response? Dharani?
Present, ma'am.
Ramharini?
Present, ma'am.
Kalyan Sundar?
Present, ma'am.
Aravind? Aravind. Okay, Aravind is present. Sharan Varghese? 20.
There are many students in OD, ma'am.
OD, okay,
He
then-
told if you will be getting the OD list on 3 p.m. ma'am.
Okay, fine. Then I'll take care of it then. 20 is up. Okay, look into later. 22, Shakti Priya. Shakti Priya is present. Okay, 23, Nishok. Nishok is there? No response. Shreya,
Present, ma'am.
Suvedha,
Present, ma'am.
33, Vishal Bhashyam. Vishal?
OD, ma'am.
Okay. Srimati, M. Srimati. Okay, noted. Nityashri, Kamini Nityashri, 37. Pranav Ram. Okay, he also must be in OD, right? Okay, Srimati, yes, 46.
Present, ma'am.
Raja Singh,
Present, ma'am.
Pooja. Pooja, okay, noted. Lavanya, 54.
Present, ma'am.
Nityashri, 56.
Present, ma'am.
Sriram,
Present, ma'am.
Likita,
OD, ma'am.
okay. Satyamohan,
OD, ma'am.
okay. Sharan, 63. 63, no response. Okay, 67, Aviral Patel,
Present, ma'am.
67.
Present, ma'am.
Okay, 67. Okay, Sharan is no response, right? Yes, Sharan is no response. 67 is present. What about 68? Hemavardhini? Hema? No response. Present. Okay, Ajay? Okay. Akshata Saha?
OD, ma'am.
Okay. Kartik Balaji?
Present, ma'am.
Santosh Kumar?
Yes, ma'am.
Anand Arun? Okay. Rahul P? Okay. Suhashini Srikanth?
Present, ma'am.
Apurva Ravichandran?
Present,
Vithun?
Present, ma'am.
Adityan?
Present, ma'am.
Selva Niklesh?
OD, ma'am.
Okay. Yesterday, why didn't you not give OD for your poor class representative? He missed his attendance yesterday. Hmm? You were telling about the whole class. About him only, nobody told. Ramcharan?
Present, ma'am.
Achinta Murari?
Present, ma'am.
Santosh Kumar?
Present, ma'am.
Pavitra Shri?
Present, ma'am.
Praveen?
Present.
Rakesh? Rakesh?
Present, ma'am.
Nityasri Narasimhan?
Present, ma'am.
Abel Prashant? 25. Okay, Nityasri is present, right? Nishok is also there. Okay, fine. Noted. 25, Abel, no response. Preetika?
Present, ma'am.
Kevin Kurian Joseph?
Present, ma'am.
Hiten?
Present, ma'am.
Adya?
Present, ma'am.
Devora?
OD, ma'am.
Okay, Kishore?
Present, ma'am.
Sridevi? Sridevi? Yashrai?
OD, ma'am.
Jayesh Kumar?
Present, ma'am.
Okay. So was anybody able to find out what are the metrics for evaluating the rules? Goodness of a rule? Hmm? Nobody has the habit of noting down anything. Hmm? So tomorrow I'll randomly ask to somebody. So the person who doesn't give that answer, I'm not going to give attendance. Okay. So I'm not going to tell the answer also right now. Okay, so next is what are all the techniques involved in improving the classification accuracy. Okay, so we have this technique called ensemble based technique. Okay, so you can see here, uses a combination of models to increase the accuracy. Okay, so it's basically you're creating multiple models. You can see here, you're creating multiple models, and then combining them to produce an improved result. Okay, so like it is, we assume that I mean, ensemble methods, I mean, accuracy is more compared to the single when you are using a single model. Okay, so that's what our ensemble based method is all about. You can see here combining a series of k-learned models with the aim of creating a improved model. Okay, so uh, when you say ensemble, it's a classification of composite models. Okay, a combination of classifiers. You can see here, combination of classifiers. Okay, so the individual classifiers vote, and along with the class label. Okay, so that will be returned by the ensemble based on how much vote it receives. Okay, so you assume that ensembles tend to be more accurate when compared to their component classifiers. Okay, so these are the popular ensemble based methods. We will be discussing one by one. So you can see here. So this is an ensemble based classifier. You have this data set 1 to n number of data sets. You're creating individual classifiers and you're aggregating them, and having a combined classifier which is supposed to have a much more higher accuracy when compared to the individual classifier. Okay, so though this results, this ensembling based techniques and all results in improved predictive accuracy, but it's actually a little bit difficult to understand the ensemble of classifier, that is a collection of all these classifiers. Individually you have the c1, c2, c3 and all those things. It is little bit difficult to understand that. Okay, so basically there are three popular ensemble based techniques. We will look into one by one. The first one is what is called bagging. Bagging is nothing but bootstrap aggregation. Okay, so it's actually BAGG. Okay, bootstrap aggregation, bagging. AGG, bootstrap aggregation. Bootstrap aggregation together, it's called bagging. Okay, so yeah, it is actually combining bootstrapping plus aggregation. Bootstrapping plus aggregation is what is called bagging. Okay, so this is actually like we have to discuss how bagging will act as a method for improving the accuracy. Okay, so to help you understand, I'll tell you a small scenario, what the concept of this bagging is all about. Okay, so you assume that, let's assume that you are a patient. Okay, and you like to have a diagnosis being made based on whatever symptoms you are having. Okay, so what will you do? Instead of asking one doctor or instead of consulting one doctor, okay, so you will go and consult more than one doctor or several doctors. Okay, and if a certain diagnosis is getting repeated more than one time, more than by one doctor, two doctors are giving you the same diagnosis. Okay, so you may choose that as the final or the best diagnosis. Okay, so actually that final diagnosis is made on based on majority of vote. Okay, so where each doctor is getting a equal vote. Okay, so each doctor is getting a equal vote. Okay, so now instead of doctor, you assume it to be a classifier. So that's actually the basic idea behind your bagging. Okay, so the major assumption with respect to your analogy is, what is it? Somebody has put a Nishok present, ma'am. You remind me at the end of the class. Okay, so the main analogy here is the majority of vote which is being made by a large number of doctors can be considered to be more reliable than a majority of vote made by a small group. Okay, so that's the concept of your bagging. Okay, so bagging can be applied on different things. So out here you can see here, this is bagging a decision tree. Do you know what is a decision tree? We learned about what is a decision tree, how to make a prediction, everything we have, how to extract a rule, everything we have discussed. Okay, so you are given a sample data. Okay, so multiple bootstrapped subsamples are being pulled out. So you can see here, subset 1, subset 2, subset 3. This takes the form of a decision tree. Okay, so this example is with respect to decision tree. That doesn't mean that bagging can be done only for a decision tree. Okay, so a decision tree is being formed on each of the bootstrapped subsamples. You can see here tree 1, tree 2, tree 3. Okay, so like after each of this subsample decision tree has been formed, okay, some algorithm, okay, so you can say here the bootstrapped or the bagging algorithm is being used to aggregate the result aggregation over the decision tree in order to form the most efficient predictor. Okay, so that's what the concept of bagging is all about. Okay, so you are given a data set, bootstrapped subsamples are being pulled out from it. Okay, so a decision tree is being formed on each bootstrapped sample. Okay, so the results of each tree is being aggregated to yield the most accurate predictor or to yield the most strongest predictor. Okay, so putting down it in steps, or you can call this as the algorithmic steps of bagging. Okay, so why we do this bagging or bootstrap aggregation? It's basically to if it is for a decision tree, you can say it is to reduce the variance of a decision tree. Okay, so you have a set of a database D of, let's say, D tuples. Okay, so at each iteration I, let's say the iteration is I. Okay, a training set D of D samples is being, tuples is being sampled with replacement. It's bootstrapped. Okay, so then the classifier model M is learned for each training data set D, which will always be less than I. So each classifier Mi returns its class prediction. Okay, then finally the bagged classifier M, it will count the votes and assign the class with the one with the maximum number of votes to X, whatever is the unknown sample. Okay, so put it in the simple steps. What is being mentioned out here is multiple subsets are created from the original data set with equal tuples, selecting observations with replacement. So base model is created on each of these subset, and each model is learned in parallel from each training set and independent to each other. Okay, so the final predictions are determined by combining the predictions from all the models. Okay, so you can see here subset 1, subset 2, subset 3, subset 4. So the various classifiers, they are being combined and you get the final you make the final combined prediction. Okay, so that's regarding bagging in bird's eye view, I can say, because that itself is a huge topic, and we do have algorithm and algorithmic steps associated with it regarding how to implement it. But then, depending upon considering the fact that our as I'm going with respect to our syllabus, it's just I need to discuss about the various classifier improvement techniques alone. Okay, so if time permits, we can work out all these things as a demo in Google Colab or using Python. Otherwise, on the whole, you just try to understand what this bagging is all about. Okay, so I gave you the example, or I made you try to understand the concept of bagging, what it is. Okay, so how it can be used for classification and prediction, and how the accuracy factor, it is often significantly better than a single classifier derived from the database. Okay, so for noisy data, it's more robust, so improved accuracy in prediction. Okay, that's regarding bagging. So next class we'll take up boosting, how the weights come into picture. And weighted vote is being considered. Okay, so any doubts? So tomorrow when you come, you please try to find out what are the two metrics used for evaluating the goodness of a rule, and